Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen, regular meeting is called to order. Please stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Our first item on the agenda is 1.2, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on April 19, 2022. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Gregg. Are there any corrections? No corrections? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now, our next agenda item is 1.3, our public hearings. If you would like to speak to the public hearing, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Public hearing number 1. No parking from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. on the east side of White Street, 200 feet north from 5th Avenue West. If you would like to speak to this public hearing, please come forward. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2. No parking on the east side of Page Street from 16th Avenue West to 17th Avenue East. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes. We need their address too, right? Yes. Please state your address also.
1601 Page Street.
And your name?
Mike Hollingsworth.
Okay, thank you.
I've got 5 different incident reports from police officers from the parking where it's just, I mean, the street's not made to be parked on. I mean, I seen physically with my own eyes a school bus almost go over in the ditch. And the residents across the street, it's the Park Place management runs it. I've tried talking to them, but what I do know, talking to other residents, they're only allowed 2 cars, no parking in the grass, no parking in the street. Park Place, they're running for me like crazy. So I can't get nothing out of them, but it's just, it's sad whenever you see a school bus, and I deal with it myself too as a mailman.
Sure.
And, you know, I see the mailman, the trash man, seen the fire truck go down the road, and I mean, it's just, they're hugging, and it's just not, you know. And then even also on another topic of that, if there was to be no parking, another problem that's going to occur is the way people, it's open road in. I mean, they already fly up and down it with people parking on it, 40, 50 miles an hour, no posted speed limit sign, so 25. But it's just fixing one problem is going to end up on this creating another one. Suggesting maybe a speed bump or 2 out there, I don't know, that's just my opinion. But as far as the parking, anybody drive down it, I mean, when you see a school bus and the guy's hugging, let alone a school bus driver get hurt, but there'd be kids on the bus and and it's a 2-foot something drop. I mean, it would literally put the school bus on its side almost. Could.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for this public hearing, please come forward, state your name and your address. Hello.
Hi, my name's Amy Armstrong, and I live at 1608 Page Street, actually in the Page Street properties that he was referring to. The issue that I have with this is it's just the east side. I could understand if it was the whole road. We do have someone that lives at 1607. They are roofers. They park larger vehicles there all the time. I'm out daily. I'm in school right now, so I'm home all day long. The school bus does come down the road, and I've never seen an issue. As to my personal property, we have 4 working adults, so we have 4 vehicles. If I park 4 vehicles back to back in my driveway, none of us can move, our neighbors can't move. So my son had been parking his VW on the road up against the curb. I actually have pictures of it parked to where there is room, and I have pictures of the neighbors parked to where you can see there's plenty of room to get by. The gentleman that just spoke, incidents he was speaking about with the police, literally every time my son parks on the road, he calls the police, and the police are like, it's not illegal. You know, but all the incident reports, he is just, in fact, the night that we got the letter, he ended up calling the police on my child. And it's ridiculous. This man works 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometime, and he just comes home and wants to park and come in and relax. And he's being harassed over parking his car. So I think I can see, because it is a smaller road, and the ditch is quite large on the west-hand side, but if it's gonna be the east side, it needs to be the east and west, and not just our side, because it seems a little bit discriminatory towards the Park Street properties. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for public hearing number 2? No one else would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, no parking on the west side of North Brown Street from Fifth Avenue East to South Pawnee Drive, the west side of Wilson Street from Fifth Avenue East to the dead end, and on the north side of Fourth Avenue East from North Brown Street to Memorial Boulevard. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. Please state your name and your address. Hello.
Oh, Jerry Singer, 879 North Brown Street. So I didn't see it. North side of Fourth Avenue? What side is that? You have one side that has curbs and one side that doesn't. Does anybody know what side that is? Because you can't make no parking on parts that doesn't have curbs. I have a truck that sits in my driveway that 1/10 of it is in the street. As long as that's not a problem, then I don't have a problem with no parking. I agree, the part on Fourth that goes down to Memorial, that's a problem. But I live on North and Fourth, right on that corner, and there's tons of room on both sides. I mean, I just, you know, it could cause problem. What are you gonna put people on the grass? I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know. Does anybody know what side the street is on Fourth? I keep looking at her. What side? It says, I'm on North Brown, but I'm on the corner of Fourth. So when I come out my house, you turn right to go on Fourth. One side of the road has curbs, my side doesn't. Are you talking about no parking on the curb side, or are you talking parking on my side?
We'll address that when it's later on the agenda. Go ahead with what you want to say.
That was it. I didn't know that, maybe I didn't read it right, what side, because if it doesn't affect me, then, I mean, I don't have a problem with putting it one side, then letting the people park on the other side. You just have to be okay with it. I'm like, yeah, you know, I get it.
And you're on the north.
I'm on
and
North
Fourth.
Brown. and
North
Fourth.
Brown.
Yeah,
and
my
Fourth.
house sits here, and you turn right to go on Brown, north,
Okay.
down the hill. Now,
Okay.
down that hill is rough. When two cars are both parked there, it's almost impossible to drive a car through there.
Okay.
But they don't have any way to put their cars.
And
There's
we'll-
no, the curb side, you can't get up on there, and the right side, there's nothing.
We'll address
Over
that.
Wilson. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to the public hearing? Please come to the mic. Public hearing number 3. No one else would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. We're moving on to our legislative agenda. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-05 on the first reading. A ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022's annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budget. We have a motion by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Ms. Brickles, will you please read this? This is a first reading.
Ordinance 22-05, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general fund and utility fund operating budgets. Whereas it is necessary to amend the city of Springfield annual budget for the fiscal year 2022 in order to meet the requirements of the city charter. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee, that the city of Springfield annual budget for fiscal year 2022 is hereby amended to make necessary changes to expenditures and revenues within the funds and departments as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the first reading of our end-of-the-year cleanup for FY22 budget. The most important item I'll point to you on here point out to you on here is the HVAC repair at the center, which we will be ratifying that emergency purchase later. We lost most of the HVAC not in the gym, all of the HVAC that wasn't in the gym at the center, and had some people flying from Japan to look at it because the system wasn't supposed to do that and had a lot going on there, but ultimately it's a $100,000 fix, and so we're amending the budget to make that happen.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Questions on this? Yes, sir.
Yes, I definitely support that, because I'm in there almost 4 days a week working out.
Yes, sir.
Also, the additional parking at Travis Price, because I'm probably there about 4 days a week. I live in the parking in the rec center.
Yes, sir. Any questions? Discussion? No questions or discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-06 on a first reading. A ordinance adopting the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Have a motion to discuss by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Gregg. Ms. Brickles?
Ordinance 22-06, an ordinance of the City of Springfield, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Whereas Tennessee Code Annotated 9-1-116 requires that all funds of the state of Tennessee and all of its political subdivisions shall be appropriated before being expended, and that only funds that are available shall be appropriated. And whereas the municipal budget law of 1982 requires that the governing body of each municipality adopt and operate under an annual budget ordinance presenting a financial plan with at least the information required by the state statute, that no municipality may expend any monies regardless of the source except in accordance with the budget ordinance, and that the governing body shall not make any appropriation in excess of estimated available funds. And whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has published the annual operating budget and budgetary comparisons of the proposed budget with the prior year actual and the current year estimated in a newspaper of general circulation not less than 10 days prior to the meeting where the board will consider the final passage of the budget. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1, that the governing body projects anticipated revenues from all sources and appropriates planned expenditures for each department, board, office, or other agency of the municipality herein presented together with the actual annual receipts and expenditures of the last preceding fiscal year and the estimated annual expenditures for the current year, and from those revenues and unexpended and unencumbered funds as follows for the fiscal year 2022, and including the projected ending balances for the budget year, the actual ending budget's balances for the most recent fiscal year, and the estimated ending balances for the current fiscal year as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 2, at the end of the fiscal year 2022, the governing body estimates fund balances or deficits as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 3, that the governing body herein certifies that the condition of its sinking funds, if applicable, are compliant pursuant to its bond covenants, and recognizes that the municipality has outstanding bonded and other indebtedness as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 4, during the coming fiscal year 2023, the governing body has planned capital projects with proposed funding as set forth in Exhibit A attached. It is reasonably expected that the municipality will reimburse itself for certain expenditures made by, in connection with the planned capital projects through the issuance of debt. This ordinance shall be placed in the minutes of the governing body and shall be available for inspection by the general public at the office of the governing body. This ordinance constitutes a declaration of official intent under Treasury Regulations Section 1.150-2. Section 5, no appropriation listed above may be expended without an amendment of the budget ordinance as required by the municipal law of 1982. In addition, no appropriation may be made in excess of available funds except to provide for an emergency threatening the health, property, or lives of the inhabitants of the municipality, and declare by a 2/3 majority vote of at least a quorum of the governing body in accord with Tennessee Code Annotated 6-56-205. Section 6, money may be transferred from one appropriation to another in the same fund only by appropriate ordinance by the governing body, subject to the limitations and procedures as set forth by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 6-56-209. Any resulting transfers shall be reported to the governing body at its next regular meeting and entered into the minutes. Section 7, a detailed financial plan will be attached to this budget and become part of the budget ordinance. In addition, the published operating budget and budgetary comparisons shown by fund and with beginning and ending balances and the number of full-time equivalent employees required by Tennessee Code Annotated 6-56-206 will be attached. Section 8, there is hereby levied a property tax of 1.0720 per $100 of assessed value on all personal and real property. Section 9, this annual operating and capital budget ordinance and supporting documents shall be submitted to the Comptroller of the Treasury or the Comptroller's designee for approval if the city has debt issued pursuant to Title 9, Chapter 21 of the Tennessee Code Annotated within 15 days of its adoption. This budget shall become the official budget for the fiscal year until such budget is, it shall not become the official budget for the fiscal year until such budget is approved by the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee in accordance with Title 9, Chapter 21 of the Tennessee Code Annotated or the statutes. If the Comptroller or the Treasury or Comptroller's designee determines that the budget does not comply with the statutes, the governing body shall adjust its estimates or make additional tax levies sufficient to comply with the statutes or as directed by the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee. If the city does not have such outstanding debt, it will file this annual operating and capital budget ordinance and supporting documents with the Comptroller of the Treasury or Comptroller's designee. Section 10, if for any reason a budget ordinance is not adopted prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year, the appropriations in this budget ordinance shall become the appropriations for the next fiscal year until the adoption of the new budget ordinance in accordance with Section 6-56-210 Tennessee Code Annotated, provided sufficient revenues are being collected to support the continuing appropriations. Approval of the Comptroller of Treasury or Comptroller's designee for a continuation budget will be requested if any indebtedness is outstanding. Section 11, all unencumbered balances of appropriations remaining at the end of the fiscal year shall lapse and revert to the respective fund balances. Section 12, all ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict with any provision of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 13, this ordinance shall take effect July 1st, 2022, the public welfare requiring it.
Thank you. Take a break. Well, some of us that have been around for a long time remember when we could walk out of the room and be gone for 20 minutes?
Exactly.
25 when they were reading and they actually had numbers in the budget. So we've cut that down, and I thank you for doing a great job with the first readings tonight, because I think all of them are first readings. Questions on the budget? We had a budget workshop earlier, started at 4:30, so we've gone over this budget. Yes, sir.
Publicly, I want to say, and I guess the word is being proficient, city manager and your staff, you brought us a very detailed, money-saving, fiscal conservative budget in which the city of Springfield should be proud of, with a nice reserve. And as we said earlier, I'm gonna put this out, okay, that we have enough reserve that we won't have to worry if something happened to a downside of the economy or something like that. We are spending money on items that are needed because this city is growing. And I really thank you and your staff.
Thank you.
For squeeze that dollar and making all of us happy. And not raise the taxes. I see Billy Bassett looking at me when I say this. And not raise the taxes.
It's not an easy job.
It's not an easy job.
Vice Mayor Harris.
Mayor, they have done an excellent job of bringing us this budget, I think, with probably an overall increase to the taxpayer of $10 a month. Is that $8.50 on wastewater and $1.50 on stormwater? So, great job. Now, I would gather to say with Mr. Martin and Ms. Crockett, you probably made their heart skip a beat when you said it's only going through January the 30th.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just making sure Miss Crockett was awake. She woke up real quick if she was sleeping.
But it's been some crazy times these last couple of years, but we, as a city, have been very fortunate with the leadership that we have and with the department heads that we have and the squeezing of the dollar to help in these areas, and very much we appreciate it.
Excellent job, because it takes each and every one of you, department heads, I'm looking out at you, and everybody in your departments, not just Mr. Martin, Miss Candace, Miss Lisa. It takes all of you to make this happen, and I so appreciate each and every one of you. It's a hard job to pinch them pennies, and you're excellent at pinching pennies.
I'm tight, so.
And here's the thing too. As we talked about during COVID, when we were worried what was going to happen with the budget, and are people going to spend money? Are they going to go in the house and not come back out? We had some hard conversations in how that was going to look. Well, people spent money, and they spent money at home. And I went and bought more flowers at local businesses, and I did things at home that I normally wouldn't have done, and I had projects that were taking place at my house, and I know a lot of you that are in the audience also had that. If we spend our money locally, we can't get everything in Springfield, but we're continuing to work on that and bring more and more retail. The whole point of this is it all goes back to us. And we need to continue to remember to shop at home when we can. Other discussion on the budget? Questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Sorry. My cursor disappeared.
Your break's over.
Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-07 on a first reading, or ordinance rescinding ordinance 20-08 in its entirety, and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield water system. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard. I'm going to call on Ms. Brickles to read this.
Ordinance 22-07, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 20-08 in its entirety and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield water system. Whereas the water system has become fiscally sound such that it is beneficial and necessary to decrease water rates for the betterment of the ratepayers, and whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield requires that any establishment of fees and charges must be accomplished through legislative action, which must be exercised by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee, that ordinance 20-08 is hereby rescinded in its entirety, and a new schedule of rates and charges is hereby adopted as follows. All direct retail customers shall pay a minimum monthly bill. The minimum bill shall include the treatment and collection of the first 2,000 gallons of discharge per month. The minimum monthly bill for each customer shall be as follows. Residential, $20.24 in the city, $30.35 in the county. Small commercial with less than 24,000 gallons a month is $31.04 in the city and $46.57 in the county. Large commercial with greater than 24,000 gallons a month is $46.67 in the city and $69.99 in the county. Industrial customers in the city is $71.36. County is $107.04. All customers shall pay a consumption rate of the water usage in excess of the first 2,000 gallons per month. The use rate shall be for each 1,000 gallons and any fractional portion thereof. The use rate for each customer shall be as follows. 2,001 to 5,000 gallons. In the city is $7.71 per 1,000 gallons. In the county, it's $11.57 per 1,000 gallons. 5,001 gallons to 20,000 gallons is $6.58 per thousand gallons in the city, $9.86 per thousand gallons in the county. 20,001 to 100,000 gallons is $5.39 per thousand gallons in the city, $8.07 per thousand gallons in the county. Greater than 100,000 gallons is $4.62 per thousand gallons in the city, $6.93 per thousand gallons in the county. The charge for treatment, transmission, and storage for wholesale customers shall be as follows. Wholesale will be $4.75 per thousand gallons. The rate of contractual wholesale customers whose agreement is affected by this rate change shall decrease by 4%. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are rescinded by the extent of the conflict only. This ordinance shall become effective following billing for July 1st, 2022.
Thank you. Our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Pleased to report to you, as I did in the work session, that our water fund is very healthy, our water utility is healthy, and we are proposing to you all for the fiscal year 2023 a 4% decrease in rates. We hope that this will help provide some relief to our water customers, especially those in the city limits who are dealing with our higher wastewater rates.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing to point
Yes,
out,
sir.
Mayor, if you notice, the contractual rate, so Greenbrier, our largest wholesale customer, their contractual rate will go down 4% as well.
Thank you for pointing that out. Questions? Discussion? Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to commend our water department.
We need to brag on it because it's
Oh,
been a long
yes,
time coming.
Great job, especially, it's been 3 years now since we connected with the Kentucky, and
Logan Todd?
Yes, sir.
one of the best moves we ever made. So we got plenty of fresh water, and we're selling it pretty cheap.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other questions, discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-08 on a first reading. A ordinance rescinding ordinance 21-11 in its entirety is setting a new schedule of rate charges for the Springfield wastewater system. We have a motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Ms. Sprinkles, I'll call on you to read this.
Ordinance 22-08, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 21-11 in its entirety and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield sewer system. Whereas it has become necessary to increase sewer rates in order to pay for increased cost of operations, maintenance, and debt service, and whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield requires that establishment of fees and charges be accomplished through legislative action which must be exercised by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. All direct retail customers shall pay a minimum monthly bill. The minimum bill shall include the treatment and collection of the first 2,000 gallons of discharge per month. The minimum monthly bill for each customer class shall be as follows. Residential in the city is $47.50, in the county at $71.26. Small commercial with less than 24,000 gallons a month is $72.92 in the city, $109.38 in the county. Large commercial with greater than 24,000 gallons a month is $121.44 in the city, $182.15 in the county. Industrial customers in the city is $484.73, in the county at $727.11. All customers shall pay a use rate based on the volume of wastewater collected for treatment in excess of 2,000 gallons per month. The use rate shall be for each 1,000 gallons in any fractional proportion thereof. The use rates for each customer shall be as follows. 2,001 gallons to 5,000 gallons in the city is $15.07 per 1,000 gallons, $22.59 per 1,000 gallons in the county. 5,001 gallons to 20,000 gallons is $13.02 per 1,000 gallons in the city, $18.47 per 1,000 gallons in the county. 20,001 gallons to 100,000 gallons is $11.08 per thousand gallons in the city, $16.60 per thousand gallons in the county. Greater than 100,000 gallons will be $9.04 per thousand gallons in the city, $13.56 per thousand gallons in the county. Credit for filling a swimming pool shall be given one time per year based on the pool's capacity. This credit cannot cause the monthly bill to fall below the normal average usage. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only. This ordinance shall become effective with billing of July 1st, 2022.
Thank you. Our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, as the trend has been, we are proposing an increase to the wastewater rates this year for FY23 budget of 10%. That's a smaller increase than last year, but the reality is the situation is going to get worse before it gets a lot better. As you know, we have spent over $60 million on our collection system, which the good news there is we are finishing up and have a draft final report for the EPA to get out from under the administrative order on consent. So that takes care of the collection side of things, just right in time for us to take care of the treatment plant side of things. So that's $47 million. That's still the price tag on the plant. And we are embarking on that project right now. Unfortunately, that means a lot of debt. And the debt service in the wastewater fund is north of 20%. So about 26 cents of every dollar we bring in the wastewater fund goes to doing nothing but paying debt. So, and that's only going to get worse as we build the plant. So unfortunately, we need a 10% increase this year.
Okay, questions? I know we've talked about this for years. This has been a sore subject, but it's something that we are going to be required to do one way or the other, correct?
That's right.
Questions? Yes, sir?
Yes, you know, we have planned quite well, and as we grow, we have to make sure we solidify our infrastructure. And when developers look at every, you have to understand that. You want to build, you have to have.
Some of this debt's because EPA
Yes.
made us. The majority of it.
Yeah.
We didn't choose to do this.
No, we didn't.
Any questions, discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-09 on a first reading. An ordinance rescinding ordinance 19-13 in its entirety and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield stormwater system. We have a motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. I'll call on Ms. Brickles.
Ordinance 22-09, an ordinance rescinding ordinance 19-13 in its entirety and setting a new schedule of rates and charges for the Springfield Stormwater Management Program. Whereas it has become necessary to increase stormwater rates in order to pay for increased cost of operations, maintenance, and debt service. And whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield requires that the establishment of fees and charges be accomplished through legislative action, which must be exercised by ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. The stormwater fee for single-family residential property shall be $4 per month. The base rate for an ERU, equivalent residential unit for the stormwater user fee shall be $4 per month. The amount of impervious surface of the ERU shall be 3,465 square feet. The monthly stormwater fee for each non-single family residential property shall be determined by taking the calculated amount of square footage of impervious surface on the property and dividing it by the square footage of one equivalent residential unit. To determine the number of equivalent residential units, or ERUs, on the property, and the resulting number of equivalent residential units shall be rounded up to the nearest whole number of equivalent residential units and multiplied by the base rate for an ERU of $4. Non-single family residential properties will be eligible to qualify for stormwater credits to the stormwater user fee pursuant to the stormwater user fee credit manual included herein as Exhibit A. Any bill rendered for the payment of the stormwater fee shall contain the following statement with respect to the charges assessed. with each statement shall be printed in boldface type. This fee has been mandated by Congress. This ordinance shall become effective immediately upon passage. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. I'll call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Our stormwater utility, as we discussed earlier, is requiring a small increase this year of $1.50. And I should have mentioned under the wastewater portion that the average increase, the average resident will see an $8.50 or so increase in their sewer bill. This would be a $1.50 increase on the stormwater rates. Each resident pays currently $2.50 per month. Obviously, as Ms. Brickles explained in the ordinance, the ERUs calculate how much our commercial and industrial customers will pay by virtue of stormwater. Mr. Moore, as we laid out in the work session, has developed a credit system that is proposed for your adoption tonight that would help those industrial and commercial folks that have taken measures on their property to treat their wastewater or stormwater quantity. I can't get wastewater out of my brain. Stormwater quantity and quality, and a tiered credit system. So that's proposed for your adoption tonight.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote on the stormwater. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-10 on a first reading. A ordinance establishing the system development fees for the city of Springfield. We have a motion by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. This is a first reading, so Ms. Brickles will read it.
Ordinance 22-10, an ordinance amending Title V of the Springfield Municipal Code to adopt system development charges. Whereas the city of Springfield has the authority to assess system development charges pursuant to Chapter 11 of the Private Acts of 2001, and whereas the protection of the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city requires that the general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater facilities of the city be expanded and improved to meet the demands of new development, and whereas the creation of an equitable system development charge system would enable the city to impose a share of the cost of required improvements to the city's general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater facilities on those developments that create the need. And whereas the city has conducted a system development study that sets forth reasonable methodologies and analysis for determining the impacts of various types of development on the city's general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater facilities. And whereas the general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater system development charges described in this ordinance are based on the system development charge study and do not exceed the capital costs required to serve the development that will pay the charges. And whereas this is both a rational nexus and a rough proportionality between the development impacts created by each type of new development covered by this section and the general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater system development charges that such development will be required to pay. And whereas this ordinance creates a system by which system development charges paid by impact generating development will be used to expand the city general government, transportation, fire, parks, police, water, and wastewater facilities so that the development that pays each fee will receive a corresponding benefit. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Title V of the Springfield Municipal Code is hereby amended by adding a new chapter entitled Chapter 6, System Development Charges, to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. I'll call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the proposal for our system development fees, which Mr. Bice, who's in the audience tonight, was the consultant that we contracted with to perform the study, and last month he presented to you all the maximum allowable charges. We had a great discussion on that and walked away last month kind of under the impression that we might look at the maximums. After doing more comparisons, talking to a lot of folks, some of those are in this room tonight, a lot of substantive conversations, really there were some concerns. I sent those to you last week about what those concerns were. And so the proposal that we've made for you all to consider tonight is looking at 100% of the wastewater fee and 50% of the remaining fee, so only adopting half of that. So on the non-utility side of things, I believe the average in Middle Tennessee, and I didn't come up with this, but someone here tonight did, and I appreciate him doing that, but the average in Middle Tennessee on the non-utility side is $4,200, and that would put us at $4,500 if we adopted the proposal tonight on the non-utility. You can't really draw the comparisons on the utility side because there may be other utility impact fees that you pay in those jurisdictions. They're unlike us in that they don't have the electric utility, the wastewater, water, and gas utilities. So that would put us at $4,500 on the non-utility side, and also help out the commercial side. One of the things that really concerned us too on the commercial side of things was that a 100,000 square foot commercial building, the system development fees on that would have been $1.2 million roughly on the non-utility side. And that's when we are knee-deep in the throes of recruiting commercial development. We need the retail. We talk about shopping local, and we have some very, very interested commercial retailers in coming to Springfield. We don't want to throw $1.2 million, throwing that at them might be counterproductive and counterintuitive at this point. So we would propose not adopting the maximum fees to you all tonight.
Thank you. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
I had one thing I wanted to bring up as
Yes.
as a possibility.
Sure.
So I first and foremost believe that we need this. I think that we need some type of fee to be able to move forward with the rapid growth that we've seen in our area, which is fantastic. This is something that we all want, right? The idea that I had that I wanted to propose to the board was something of a graduated fee potentially. So we have this right now. I think the non-utility is around 45, and then the rest would equal about 91 for a single family, right? With the utility fees,
Yeah.
around that, give or take. My thought process was, could we not do this as a graduated fee where it's, starting August 1st, we're gonna take 30% of that, and that's gonna be August 1st. In January 2023, we're now at 50% of that, and then in July, our fiscal, I'm thinking January again. In July, we're at maybe, 80% of that, and we kind of graduate up so that folks who are developing are able to kind of put it into their budgets for now. And then folks who are bringing these massive developments in the future, they're able to plan for those fees as well and know where they kind of sit on that scale. That was just a thought that I had, and I wanted to present to the board and see what my colleagues thought.
Okay. Discussion. It's interesting because, we've sat here for a long time and we've wanted all of this growth.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the growth, we need new firemen, new police officers, new everything. Every department's going to be affected by the population growth. I don't want to do this, but we've got to do something. None of us up here want to do it, I'm sure. I won't speak for you, but I look at your faces and I know from discussions and work sessions that we've had, nobody wants to do it. And I look at our developers sitting out in the audience and I know that it's going to hit them. We've had that meeting. When was that meeting? In January that we had right here in this room? Has it been that long, Carson?
No. Yeah, that's right. It was January, the stakeholder meeting,
Yeah.
And we asked the developers to come and join us. And several of you in the room came. We have to work on this situation together. We can't tell Chief Head he can't have any more officers and we've increased the population. That just wouldn't be right. We can't tell Jeff that we can't have any more firemen. We've got to do something. We're at a crossroads.
So if we pass this, it's effective after the meeting next month? Or when would it go into effect?
It would be effective, unless you all specified differently, it would be effective following the meeting. So on that Tuesday night, when we opened Wednesday morning, whoever pulled the building permit would have to pay
So
that.
those that have the present building permits would not be affected by these rates?
It's payable at the time of the permit. One thing that I do want to point out, especially because there was a great deal of confusion last month. Redevelopment is not, and you all see in the proposed ordinance, redevelopment does not have to pay the full fee.
Right.
Mr. Bice laid out last month how impact fees work. It's impact generating development. that triggers the fee. And so it's the growth that's paying for the growth, right? And so we're not allowed to pay, Mr. Harris and I were talking before the meeting about the police fee. We couldn't pay for an entire new police department headquarters with an impact fee or a system development fee because the growth isn't responsible for entirely needing a new. But if you had a 1,500 square foot, I'm just using a round number, police department headquarters, and you built a 2,000 square foot, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the impact fee could only pay for 500 square feet of that because that's the growth, in simple terms, that's the growth that's assigned to that you needed. So redevelopment, when you take a structure, there are procedures for that. When you take a structure that exists, if you don't expand it, then there's very little, if any, impact generating development that triggers a fee, if that makes sense. And I agree 100% that, Mayor, that this is something that we don't want to do, but we just did a 10% wastewater increase because we're building a new plant now and we're doubling the capacity of the plant. For those that don't know, we're going from a 3.4 million gallon per day plant to a 7 million gallon per day plant because of the growth.
Right.
And so that's the idea, being that some of the growth pays for some of the growth. And because we all hear from our residents who are very weary of the growing wastewater rates.
And Mayor,
Yes, sir.
not trying to be redundant, but we saw it coming. Middle Tennessee has been discovered. All the other counties around Nashville was facing all of this years ago. We're the last frontier. And if you look around, you got lots of places from almost every state in the union is coming here. So, you know, we just have to match what is relevant for all this growth that's coming. And we'll get through it. Because we are very resilient, and I'm saying this because I've been here about 30 years, we're a very resilient city. We know how to overcome situations, so we'll get through this.
We asked for it.
Yes, we did.
We asked for the growth. Here we are.
If you build it, they'll come.
Other discussion? Yes,
But
sir.
you're feeling that what you're talking about, Ms. Arnold, is that it's giving them some leeway as to working it into their budgets, but unless I'm missing something, I don't know that I could support that in the effect that from everything that we're being told and we're being hearing, the prices of building any kind of structure are changing on a daily basis. And so that would just be part of doing business, would it not? Or
Well, and Mr.
am I missing something? or-
Mr. Bice is here, and, you know, if you would like to ask him,
If you'll come up, then please, sir. If you'll bring him up.
Carson, will you please come to the mic?
In
Welcome
your-
back.
Deputy Mayor, Alderman.
Your experience with this, then, do you see any that you have worked with that go into this in a graduated plan? or-
Yes, frequently jurisdictions who are adopting fees for the first time, probably, I mean, I don't know statistically, but I'd say at least probably half do a graduated fee schedule, because the idea is that you do have development projects that have had their financing for a while, and these fees weren't contemplated and built into their pro formas. And so typically, you know, it would be something like, you know, maybe there's a 60-day or a 6-month waiting period, and then they go into full effect, or they go graduated, as you mentioned, where it's maybe 30% now, another 30% 6 months down the road. So it's all over the map in terms of how the graduation happens, but it's frequently done.
And do you see, at what percentage, like a 50% and 100%, or just all
It
over the
just,
board?
it varies. It varies. Some, you know, give a year before they go into effect. Others adopt 25% now, 50% a few months later. I mean, it's all over the place.
And for the ones that have their finance worked out, but they've not had time to close those loans, that's going to take a good 3 months to 6 months. I mean,
Just to say it, just to reiterate, I am all for
Yeah.
this happening. I think that, do I want it to happen? Absolutely not. But I think that there are developers that put a lot of risk in our city to grow it, right? They could go anywhere and do anything, but a lot of them choose Springfield specifically, and they live here and they work here. Just doing a graduated schedule, to me, gives them the ability to, pivot, which we all hate that word, right? But it gives them the ability to do that, to say, okay, great, well, what I have going on right now I'll continue with, and then moving forward, I might want to, adjust this or that, or take out a little bit more finance, like you were saying, do whatever I need to do to continue to grow here. And I feel like there is a little bit of trust and loyalty, even more so, that we can gain with the development community by not just putting it all on them at once. And I think that they do a lot for us, and we should also, look into something like this as well. That's just my opinion. Again, I do think it's necessary. I wish it was zero, and I wish everything was great, but
I wish we won the lottery.
yeah, the world just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Other questions while he's at the mic?
I'll offer an amendment to the motion.
Yes, sir.
Like the amendment to state that upon passage of this, that we begin with a 50% fee beginning September the 1st, and then it become 100% fee beginning January the 1st of 2023. That gives them about a 6-month.
Got a question? Go for it.
Mr. Harris, is that 50% of the proposal and then 100% of the proposal?
Yes.
Okay, so not 100% of the maximum allowable fees, 50% of what we proposed in the ordinance tonight.
50% of the proposal.
That we begin it September the 1st by charging 50% of the proposed fee,
Okay.
and then 100% January the 1st of 2023.
Okay. Vice Mayor Harris has made the motion, and it's a second by Alderman Hubbard. Discussion on the amendment.
Just like the council lady said, we have to work with them.
Yeah.
They want to work with us. And we have, over the years, made concessions like this.
I mean, I fully realize that it would be a burden to them to begin it after our meeting in June, but yet this is a fee that needs to take place. And so I think that's giving them a little bit over 2 months for the first 50%, and then almost 6 months before we begin at 100%.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? No other discussion on the amendment? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, we're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion on the main motion as amended? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-11 on a first reading. A ordinance amending Title 20 of the Springfield Municipal Code by amending Chapter 2 entitled Temporary Food Vendor Regulations. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss, and a second by Alderman Gregg. This is a first reading. Ms. Brickles.
Ordinance 22-11, an ordinance amending Title 20 of the Springfield Municipal Code by amending Chapter 2 entitled Temporary Food Vendor Regulations. Whereas the Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen passed Ordinance 18-15 establishing temporary food vendor regulations, which was later amended by Ordinance 21-09. And whereas it has become the desire of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to further amend the temporary food vendor regulations to allow for a one-day permit. And whereas the staff of the City of Springfield recommends that the temporary food vendor regulations be amended to establish said permit and ease the application process. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Title 20, Chapter 2 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Temporary Food Vendor Regulations is hereby amended by amending Section 20-204 entitled Locations and Hours of Operations as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Title 20, Chapter 2 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Temporary Food Vendor Regulations is hereby amended by amending Section 20-206 entitled Mobile Food Service Permits as set forth in Exhibit A attached. This ordinance shall become effective on the date of adoption. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion on this first reading? Ms. Arnold brought to our attention that we had probably left out some folks, and I thank you for that, because, you know, sometimes we sit up here and it looks good on paper, and then we get in the middle of doing the work, and we realize, whoa, we didn't think about that.
I think this will be great.
This will be great.
The way that it's laid out is acceptable to what you were wanting to try to do.
Absolutely. This is what you see in other cities, and I think that this is really going to attract some great food trucks up here, which will bring the crowds, and then they get to experience Springfield. So I think it'll be great.
Any discussion
I agree with you.
It's going to affect immediately on the second reading.
on the second reading?
Great.
Any more discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
2.8, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 22-12 on a first reading. An ordinance amending the City of Springfield Conditions of Service Manual by amending the section entitled Electric, by amending certain policies to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. I will call on Ms. Brickles. This is our last first reading that we're going to make her read tonight.
Ordinance 22-12, an ordinance amending the City of Springfield Conditions of Service Manual by amending the section entitled Electric. Whereas it is necessary to amend or rescind certain policies in order to better serve our electric customers. And whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield, Tennessee requires legislative action to amend or set fees. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. The City of Springfield Conditions of Service Manual is hereby amended by amending the section entitled Electric by rescinding in their entirety the policies entitled Underground Distribution, Underground Service for Non-Residential Customers, Underground Service Policy for Residential Customers, and Street Lighting, and substituting new policies to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. Our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is cleaning up and updating some regulations for our electric utilities conditions of service. There were some fees that are outdated. We do this during budget time as well. Minor fees, I think, minor increases, and some other changes such as street lighting and things like that, that just to get up to date, we had some really out-of-date policies. So just some updating.
Thank you. Questions? Discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.9, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-18, a resolution accepting a maintenance bond from Reyes Construction, Inc. to guarantee maintenance sureties from the streets, right-of-way easements, and the infrastructure improvements in Sleepy Hollow subdivision, Section 5. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. Yes, sir.
Mr. Reyes, are you here?
He is.
We just want to kind of introduce you. Everybody don't really know who you are.
You ready to speak Spanish?
No, sir.
No, I just want to personally commend you. You've done some good work. You have really enhanced a whole lot of areas.
Well, you know, we try to do our best, you know, that, try to fix some areas that need to be, fixed. And it take a lot of work, but we get in there and still a lot of work to be done here in Springfield.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
All right, questions, discussion on this resolution?
Personally, thank you, sir.
No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
2.10, Discuss and possible take action on Resolution 22-19, a resolution amending the open invocation policy. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss, and a second by Vice Mayor Harris.
An amendment to the motion. That you, number 4 states the mayor shall announce the observation of the moment of silence after calling the meeting to order, followed by the pledge. I would like us to see, continue to do the pledge first, followed by the moment of silence.
You hit your amendment.
To
It's your amendment. There you go.
state it again.
No. just needs a second.
Okay? The amendment has been made. To switch those on the agenda, and a second has been made by Alderman Green. Any discussion?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I'm still stubborn on this.
We would never know that.
Because if the Senate can do it, if the Congress can do it, and most cities in the National League of Cities that I've contacted, they're doing it.
Amen.
In the state of Tennessee.
I certainly have no problem
So-
with doing it.
So, you know, I have no problem doing it. And I'm just gonna let you know me. Hey, you know, this is something we're based on in this country, so I'm gonna have to roll that way.
I say amen. Any more discussion? No discussion? Ready to vote on the amendment to amend to say the pledge first and then the moment of silence. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. We're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion on the main motion as amended?
I mean, I will agree with Mr. Hubbard. I think we should be having a moment of prayer myself. But we've been told we're acting against advice of our legal department, so I don't know what other choice we have. Do we have any, Mr. Martin? Your opinion. I'm just asking your opinion.
Yes, I think you do. I think you do. I think
see
you,
nothing wrong with a member of this body or a member of this out here to lead a prayer before this council.
I
I'm not
think-
gonna say we would not get sued, but
right, and I think that's what Ms. Barty's role is to
Understand.
advise you when the city may be exposed to civil liability. And I think that's her opinion, is that, you know, if we do this, you may expose the city to civil liability. Like I mentioned last month, I think you can do whatever you want to. And this board is certainly free, if it wants to have a prayer at this meeting, and I think most of us do, the board can do that. But understanding that our city attorney has given us the guidance that just know, don't be shocked, right, if it causes us to be sued for whatever reason, okay?
And
Comment.
we've been sued for other things that we thought we would never be in court for.
I mean, is that a position we're willing to take?
Mr. Hubbard?
Anywhere else, the people are told we're not to go into prayer, okay? So they can't be all over the place, can't be condemning other religions, can't be condemning other personalities. It's a straight prayer of empowerment. And I think that can be handled, okay? And empowerment and clear conscience to do the business of the city of Springfield. And, excuse me for saying this,
Say it.
but you know, I'm this old veteran that fought hard for that, brother. So I'll stick with that.
Can I ask a question and point information?
Yes.
I mean, we are all aware that that the county commission of Robertson County does lead their own prayers. I'd like to ask Alderman Trotter, he is a sergeant of arms at the House, at the legislature. Do the members of that body lead invocation that are not ordained ministers?
There have been some do that, sure.
And it is acceptable
It is acceptable.
on the state level.
State level.
Well, I'm certainly willing to lead the prayer.
I think we should do the moment of silence, and if there happens to be a little voice that comes out at that time, then it'll be all right.
By this body,
However,
not the audience.
I think for the legislature, before they have visiting ministers, they do have a conference with them before they start. You know, they greet them and tell them what's expected to them and, you know, tell them what, you know, to stay away from, like Alderman Hubbard said, you know, stay away from
Yeah,
the politics of it and down in other religions.
simple prayer.
Just a simple prayer.
And I'm,
Well, there's nothing such thing as a simple prayer.
Yeah.
Good prayer.
Just good prayer.
good prayer.
Another comment.
We need it.
You know, I move around in the city, so I did ask a cross-section of people, okay? And the answer was, you know, hey, let it roll. Because most folk I talk to believe in divine intervention that saves Springfield. I'm just gonna stop right there.
Well, and
I said divine intervention, I didn't.
I totally respect our city attorney for her opinion.
Yes.
There is plenty of court cases where I'm sure she can look up and find situations that people have been sued for. We need to start with prayer. And risk it. My opinion only. Yes.
Well, I will say that while I am a person of faith, I'm also a person trained in the law, and it gives me heebie-jeebies to think of doing something that might expose the city to liability. So while I'm very sympathetic and I would be happy to be able to do that, I'm personally not comfortable doing something that would be exposing the city to potential liability and a cost to the taxpayers.
Sure.
So, but
And we
I
have
have
to
no
think about that.
opposition to it. I think it would be lovely, and if that's how the board chooses to go, I'm all for it, but that's just kind of my perspective.
Thank you for your,
I completely agree. I also am a person of faith and would absolutely love to do that. I also have the responsibility to the taxpayers of getting into a massive lawsuit over this. So I just feel so torn. So that's why I'm just sitting here so quietly with two sides of my brain going after it. As it's written right now, we have that moment of silence, and I guess maybe I had misunderstood, because I thought that was an opportunity for us to either silently pray or to have a moment to ourselves to pray. But I guess what the board is saying is you would rather have someone kind of lead in prayer. Is that what I'm hearing? 'Cause
That would be my preference, but
Got it.
certainly, again, as what you said, I don't want to cause anything that's going to put the city at risk. But
It's
of
the
course,
toughest
anything that we do
decision,
on any situation can put the city at risk.
Right.
it's unfortunate that we're having to spend any time discussing this.
That's exactly right, yeah. But I stand with you.
Call for the vote.
Okay, ready for the vote.
Okay.
Which
understand
is-
what we're going to
Voting on the moment of silence,
As amended.
as amended with the pledge first, followed by the moment of silence.
Yes. Everybody understand what they're voting on?
Say it again.
And we're having the pledge of allegiance first, followed by a moment of silence.
Okay? Everybody ready to vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended.
No, we're done.
We're done? Okay. Thank you for keeping me straight. Another one of your jobs. That falls under the one that says all other things that
Yeah.
could happen. Administrative agenda, 3.1. Discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the retail electric rates for the Springfield Electric Department due to a wholesale fuel cost adjustment by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Vice Mayor Parents to discuss. Ms. Jessica?
TVA has handed down a 2.715 cent per kilowatt hour fuel cost adjustment for the month of June 2022. Unfortunately, that does mean that the resulting retail rate is going to be about 10% higher compared to last month, which is typical for summer and summer rates.
And we will blame that on your boss, Mr. Steve Sachs. Yes, thank you. Any discussion on the adjustment? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the monthly gas rates of the Springfield Gas Department. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Mr. Gregg.
Glad y'all all sitting down. Purchase gas adjustment increased 26.2%.
I think we've all been watching the news. Sir?
I have to make a statement, you know, just for every city in America, not just us.
Right.
We're sick and tired of these high prices when I'm a South Texas raised oil field brat. Just left it a month ago when I see all the wells and stuff not pumping and stuff, see. When I hear comments, understand me, that we're making profits and stuff by raising natural gas as well as regular gas and stuff. So, you know, I'm putting this out because we as leaders ought to be concerned about this, holding us hostage.
Okay. Any other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible.
I always wanted to vote no against it.
You wanted to vote no?
Yeah, I always wanted to vote no against the gas price going up.
I probably should pause and tell you that this is a pass-through.
I know, but you go.
We don't have a choice.
He said it felt good.
Former Mayor Billy Paul Carneal, I shall pull out what he
No
would
offense
say
to
in this
Mr.
occasion and tell you the history lesson on that we'll
I'm
have
sure
to come back if.
Mr. Riddle will report back we have 1%.
Mr. Riddle, I think Mr. Trotter's wanting you to do better next month.
I know it's not his fault.
I know it's not his fault either, but we sure do like to give him grief for
I
it.
know the bodies, the city, municipalities, all of them are to start just getting furious about stuff like this, okay?
I'm furious at the grocery store
Yeah,
prices.
exactly. Some stuff we just can't turn our heads on, okay?
No, it affects us all. 3.3, discuss and possible take action to ratify the emergency road tractor purchase for the Water Wastewater Department. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. This was an emergency purchase that had to be done. Yes, sir.
Mayor, just to explain the reason, the emergency nature of this purchase is, I hate to say the word supply chain because it's getting about as obnoxious as pivot, Ms. Arnold, that we used during COVID. But we had budgeted for a road tractor and could not find one. Mr. Beers and his staff could not locate one, and finally located a used one that they would not hold. And that's the situation that we're running into. You know, usually we bid those things out, or we quote them out, we bring them to you all, and you all approve them, and then when you all approve them, we issue the purchase order. That way of business is not working now, and that's why we're doing all these emergency purchases the way we are, because if we don't buy it then, they're not gonna hold it for 30 days for us to come to you all. So we appreciate your patience with us in allowing us to conduct business so we can make sure our customers are taken care of and then bring it to you later to ratify. Thank you.
Every business that I sit and talk to throughout my daily job says the same thing. They won't hold it for 3 days.
Sure will.
Just for information, if there were one available, what's a new one cost?
This one was a used one with 250,000 miles on it, and it was 60,000. I think a new one was north of 100, right? Yeah, 120.
But they're not available.
Not available.
Got to seize the moment.
Any other questions, discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action on to ratify the emergency HVAC purchase for the Parks and Recreation Department. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. I understand the need for the emergency situation. We've had the same thing in my daily job.
Miss Tiny needs some air.
Miss Tiny needs some air. We're not worried about Mr. Martin.
No, not in the least on this one.
Miss Tiny and Miss Sherry need air.
He's outside working hard, you know.
He is. Up and down the road.
He used to be outside working.
They're picking on you a little bit, Mr. Martin.
It's 'cause I'm sitting over here.
He's going back to his regular spot next month. We won't see him straight in front of our eyes. Any other questions? We're ready for a vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action on the recommendation from the Traffic Committee to post no parking signs from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. on the east side of White Street, 200 feet north from Fifth Avenue West. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green. Any discussion? I look to you because this is in your ward.
It is, and I've been contacted, I think, by almost everyone on White Street saying that they're all in support of this to hopefully help alleviate the parking issues that they have had. So I'm happy to report that it is being very well received by the residents.
Okay?
Question.
Yes, sir.
I think we asked last month that this not be made Monday through Friday only, and you said that was possible, or is
Oh,
that
yes,
not a
we
good-
could
is
definitely do
Not a
that.
good thing to do, or
Oh, no, it's, the problem is Monday through Friday, so we could
so
definitely
do we offer
restrict
an
it.
amendment to this?
I think you've made a motion to discuss. I think you can make a motion to, for what you want to adopt at this point. If you want, because if you wanted to change the hours, or if you wanted to change the days, what exactly, this is the
I
recommendation.
think
from the
what we're
traffic
needing to
committee.
accomplish on this street would only involve Monday through Friday.
Yes.
Correct.
From 2 until 5, so that would be my recommendation on this particular street, that it be Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m.
And that is the motion that we have on the floor. Okay? Any discussion on the motion?
If Ms. Green has no problem.
Ms. Green,
I think that sounds great. I think that is, you've identified the issue. It's school, so that will help.
Okay? Other discussion? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote.
Do we need to amend it?
That's Mr. Harris's motion.
It's his motion.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This was the recommendation.
Correct? We don't have to.
Everybody understand what you're voting on, Monday through Friday? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.6, discuss and possible take action on a recommendation from the Traffic Committee to post no parking signs on the east side of Page Street from 16th Avenue West to 17th Avenue East on the east side. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green to discuss.
Man,
Sir.
since this is my ward,
Yes, sir.
driving my ward, and I saw this, and I barely could get through. And looking out for our emergency vehicles and stuff like that, I knew that they couldn't get through, but I barely got through. I did bring it to the attention of the city manager. The city manager did turn it over to the traffic committee. And so, I support your findings. So I recommend to approve it.
Okay. So you make that motion?
I made that motion, yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Mr. Moore, in where I live, that this is not an issue, parking on the street. So with the traffic committee looking at this, what are they exactly looking at? So we've had questions raised on this street and on the next one that we're about to talk about. I don't think it was on this one about curbs on one side, curbs not on the other side, but, and then are making both sides of the street no parking. Are people parking on the street here because they can, or because they have to, or need to?
I can't
What?
fully answer their motivations, but they are definitely people parking on both sides of the street, and that's a very narrow road. And it's impossible for a fire truck with 9-foot width to even pass through a road that's 20-foot wide, and has cars on both sides, with a car average width varying from 6 to 8 feet in width. So there's no way for them to get through.
What
And I
makes you choose
do-
one side of the street over the other?
Yes, sir. And this is true on all these streets, why we choose the one. We decided to choose the side of the road that restrict people to park on the side that has utilities. And the reason for that is so our emergency vehicles, service vehicles, first responders and such can pass with less obstacles to obstruct their access through the street. And that is the major reason we chose those. Now, on those particular ones that we heard about curbs on them, they have 100 feet of curb on a 2,000-foot-long road. There's not really a curbed side. There's curbed lots. And like Brown Street has 100 feet. And that's all there is of it. But on Page Street, it has a curb side and a deep ditch side. It does. And it does. And that particular street is so narrow that even parking any road, any vehicles on that road can be a problem, depending on what's going on. And now particularly on Wilson Street, was that Watson or Whitson? Wilson. There was an incident where people were parked on both sides of the street. An individual elderly lady had a medical emergency. Service vehicles could not get to her, couldn't get to the house, and they had to take a gurney up the street, retrieve her, treat her, retrieve her, and get her to a medical attention at a facility
Okay,
after transporting her.
we're
Now,
talking
that's a
about
different,
3
that's a different story, but I think.
3.7.
Yes, ma'am, but it's all relevant to the same.
Okay.
And it's, you can pick your street.
Yes, sir.
And that situation can happen on all of
Okay.
them.
But let me
These
get back-
particular ones.
Let me get back 3.7.
Okay, we're on 3.6.
I'm talking about Page Street.
Yes, 3.6, yes, sir.
3.6.
Okay, on Page Street, 3 consecutive days, Mr. Harris, I went out there, and that was the same thing, so I got sick and tired, and that's when I came to the city manager, okay? Because really, on that particular day, you know, it was hard for me to navigate my way through.
Yes, sir.
And I drive a Camry, okay? And so, you know, I just could not let it go.
I mean, this particular street, because of the situation there with the ditch there, vehicles parking on both sides, honestly, I would prefer no parking on this particular street.
That's what I want.
However, many homes have, you know, the days of having 1 or 2 cars in a household are not here. We're having 3 to 4 vehicles. So, you know, these lots don't have room for them. And they need somewhere to park.
So hypothetically speaking, you're saying if we made both sides of the street no parking, there would be no room for some cars to go?
Yes, sir, I definitely think that would be a problem.
But yet if it's causing a hazard with responders,
We need to accommodate some way. So this is kind of a happy medium
And we can see how this
to
works.
mitigate the problem by restricting it to one side. And being that if their vehicles are parked on the side with utilities, which is also the ditch side, and emergency service has to come through, our emergency services can jump the curb and get up there. But riding in the ditch is not an option.
Sure.
No, that street is really, you know.
so the
really-
passage of this, the way it's written, then the traffic committee feels is the correct way that it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
And the Aldermen feel, because I'm hands-on, you know, I'm not talking about what I saw, what I experienced.
I'll call on our city manager.
Mr. Moore, I have a question. There was a citizen here at the public hearing that spoke in opposition to this. I kind of gathered that they needed some on-street parking. The way this is proposed from the traffic committee to the board tonight, those people would be able to park just on the street, just on the other side of the street, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
City manager, how did you feel when you drove it?
I did.
Okay, how did you feel?
I saw a little bit of the issue that day. I don't know if it was the time I went through, and I only visited one time and saw the narrow width, because trying to visit, since some of those houses are newer, right? And so I did see the issue, and I can see where the traffic committee came up with this recommendation.
Okay.
After
Any-
5 o'clock is, towards the end of the day.
Sure.
It gets much worse, obviously.
Does
Yeah.
the fire chief concur with this?
And it's not picking on the lady. I'm trying to understand.
He's got the biggest vehicles.
Yeah, he's,
Trash trucks and our trucks are probably the biggest trucks.
Yeah.
Like trucks, they're probably the same way as the clothes.
sure.
So how does the trash handle that now with cars parked out there? With the way that.
We do our best, and if someone's parked out there and we can't get to the garbage can,
They just don't get in.
we just don't get it.
Move to the next one. Any other discussion before we're ready for a vote? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on a recommendation from the Traffic Committee to post no parking signs on the west side of North Brown Street from Fifth Avenue East to the South Pawnee Drive, the west side of Wilson Street from Fifth Avenue East to the dead end, and on the north side of Fourth Avenue East from North Brown Street to Memorial Boulevard. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Any discussion?
I think this, I believe it was a gentleman that spoke to this in the
Yes, sir.
public hearing, is that correct?
Yes,
Can
sir.
we get him an answer to what his question was? We couldn't answer that question during the public meeting.
About the curb?
Why would you park it, why would you do it on the curbside? And I looked at the thing on the
Because
right
of-
side. There's no homes on the right side.
Because of the
There's no homes on
utilities.
left side. There's no curbs. How would park on the left side? And the road's wide enough anyway, between Wilson and North Brown. That road's plenty of parking. It's the other side of Wilson that goes down the hill to more, that should be no parking. That's really, the road, that part right there is fine on both sides. I've seen cars parked on both sides, and cars going right through, trucks going right through. There's plenty of room, just over Wilson, when you get down that hill, that's rough.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
It may be a little wider, but we do, in that area, I have to get out and measure it, hand measure that. But on average, it's close to 20 foot to 22 foot. There is some variation because there is a lack of a curb in most of it. There is 100 feet on a particular lot on Brown and Wilson that have curbing. And Fourth Avenue does have curbing on the downstream side. And it appears to be, when they built the subdivision, they made these choices based on drainage. And they were doing everything they could not to have curbing, but some areas they had to do it. And that's why there's some curbing on this side. But again, as Mary, you pointed out, the choices were made by utilities to reduce obstructions.
Sure. Thank you for answering that question, because that needed to be addressed. Other discussion from our board? No other discussion? Questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.8, discuss and possible take action on the presentation and the report from Community Development's Partner LLC on the Parks Master Plan. I will call on Mr. Brian Hill and Dylan Cooper with Community Development Partners if they will come to the mic. And they have the plan to pass out. This is the 5-year master plan for Parks and Recreation.
And then if you all want to pass these
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. So we're here tonight to talk to you about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This is an effort that was started close to a year back, actually. So the state of Tennessee has a fairly large fund that they supply Parks and Recreation grants from. And they've seen over the years that some of the projects they fund were either not well utilized or not well taken care of. And as you all know, as this body knows, the state of Tennessee is a fiscally conservative state, and so they wanted to make sure that they're utilizing their funds well. So starting in 2017, they started asking certain communities to develop parks and recreation master plans to identify the needs of the communities, the state or needs within the existing parks, and to survey the community and have community engagement in determining what the future of the parks and recreation system looks like. So starting in 2019, the state started to require a Parks and Recreation Master Plan to be adopted by the community in order for a community to be eligible for Parks and Recreation grants. So what we have here in front of you today is that Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the community of Springfield. And as part of this effort, we looked at your existing parks, we evaluated those parks, we had a survey out that had very good feedback, very good participation from the community on the needs and priorities of the community. We had public workshops where we got to explore in depth some of the community's priorities. We looked at how the city of Springfield compares to similar communities across the state in a benchmark analysis. And ultimately, we came up with a series of priorities for the community. Now, I want to stress, ultimately, this plan is aspirational. There are cost estimates and concepts in here, but it does not require you to spend dollars or to design your parks in a very specific way. These are aspirational. Now, that said, if you all want to pursue parks and recreation grants to develop a project in your city, it needs to be in this plan. So that's why that element is very paramount. This plan is a living document, so if things come up, things change. Obviously, for the city of Springfield, things are changing pretty quickly these days. I get it. This can be updated. And they just want there to be a good reason for it to be updated. They want it to be updated actually at least every 5 years. But if it's going to be updated more quickly than that, which is reasonable in many cases, in fact, we as a company have already done updates for communities in less than 5 years. So that's already happened. So, circumstances change, especially for a city like Springfield, there's so much changes going on, we can make changes if needed. And those efforts are much less onerous. So that can happen in the future. Towards the end of the plan, there are a series of concepts for your parks. There are a series of cost estimates. Those are conceptual cost estimates. They are for planning purposes only. So if at the back of the plan, it'll say things like, at MLK Junior Park, for example, we estimated around, $5 million for a potential future community center there. We estimate, around $2 million for potential improvements at J. Travis Price Park, or $300,000 for improvements at American Legion Park, just as examples. But ultimately, those are for you all as a body to look at and say, in any given year, if you want to apply for a grant or fit something within your budget, you have an idea of how much those items cost. And as we developed this plan, we provided you all of those items into two buckets, high priority and low priority, in order to give you all flexibility so you have a menu of things to choose from. So that's kind of how we have structured those recommendations and those potential projects. I'm sorry for the delay here in introductions, but this is Dylan Cooper. My name is Brian Hill. We are both, as we were introduced, with Community Development Partners, and we mostly, as a company, develop projects. So we will go after grants, go after loans, help communities manage projects to completion. And so when we developed this plan, we developed everything that's in here with that in mind, with implementation in mind. And so this is what I am here to present to you tonight, and I would like to open the floor to you for any questions you may have.
Okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
Well-defined overall, I'm trying to get to the conclusion because you really gave us some praises about already being a well-developed park system. you specified one that I really love, the Greenway, which we hear comments is one of the best in the state of Tennessee. You also specified how well we maintain the parks. Those guys busted out there. Sometimes I feel sorry for them, okay? Only downside that I wish that we could hear up and get to
Thank you, Madison.
is the community center. We need a community center for what I would consider soft recreational things, like old men like me having a place to play checkers and stuff like that.
Checkers.
But, I just use checkers, but other than that, you know.
I'll set a checkerboard up at the bank. You come down.
And I'm glad that you
Mr.
pointed out,
How about pickleball?
pickleball to Domino's, Texas style. I'm glad you pointed out, some of the areas that we need to fix. And so, board, look at it closely, so when Mr. Martin comes and say, hey, they pointed out we need to fix these things on this Greenway, which we got some deteriorating things, which you pointed out, like the decayed wood on the bridge and some of the parkway eroding away and stuff, And so I'm glad you pointed that out, because I've screamed that, because, that's part of my health prescription from my doctor. You out there on it. But thank you, a good job, and I really commend you and your staff for what y'all have done. Thank you, sir. This is very beautiful.
You're welcome, and thank you for your kind words, Alderman Hubbard.
And since Mr. Hubbard brings the subject up, I will get on the soapbox of pickleball. It is a popular.
Yeah.
We shall need some areas to play pickleball in the city of Springfield. It is a growing, I'm sure, Mr. Hubbard, you can learn to play pickleball.
I can learn to play it. I know a space that we can really take back and build what we want.
Someone would put us up some nets, I would challenge Mr. Hubbard, we could give the money to a local charity, and we could have a game.
You know I would let you be.
Can you buy those?
I have two at the center, you name your date.
That's right.
I got it. I got a calendar. We own it.
Just to make sure that I understand what you're, like with the center, you're saying to bring it up to where it should be, or needs to be, or could be, it would cost us roughly $500,000. Is that?
Yeah, that is what the plan is estimating, and we provide these as kind of high-level estimates for a couple of reasons. First of all, you want to account for contingencies. Also, you want to, if you're going to be going after grants for example, through the Parks and Recreation grants for something like this, they require very specific set of designs and development that is to a T, and it is pretty rigorous. So we want to make sure that we're accommodating that as well. But yes, those estimates put it at around $500,000, and a lot of that is putting in an elevator, to tell you the truth.
That's so needed.
That's a good chunk.
So needed.
He'll have a, do what?
Yep.
88 compliance. Get up to the track.
But he'll have a much better chance with grants than he will with us.
I'm sorry.
So Mr. Martin had a much better chance with grants than he will with us.
I sure hope so.
Keep writing those grants, Mr. Martin. Any other questions while two gentlemen are here at the mic? I commend you on the job you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
all right. Moving on to 3.9. Discuss and possible take action. Do we need to vote to approve it?
I think you do need to formally adopt the plan via vote.
So that we have the
Adopt
5-year
your hard
plan
work.
in the records. So when you apply, you check the box that says, we have that plan. Okay, sorry, that's correct. We need to vote.
Sorry, motions.
Okay? Any discussion before we vote? Everybody understand what they're voting on? Okay? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you again, sir.
3.9, discuss and possible take action on a contract in the amount of $47,500 with Chapin's Commercial Cleaning of Springfield, Tennessee to provide janitorial service. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green to discuss.
My understanding, this is gonna be one service for everything?
That's correct. This is a big achievement right here, to get to this point where we have one cleaning service. It's gonna save money in a lot of departments' budgets because we're not paying, we had, each department had its own agreement, and the part-time position that we're eliminating in the budget that we discussed earlier was the person responsible for cleaning City Hall. And it's Chaffee, is that right? Miss Chaffee is here tonight. These people are awesome. They have been kind of on hire for us at City Hall since our maintenance person retired. And so when Ms. Tillman began the discussion of trying to get a citywide commercial cleaning contract, she had some resistance because they said, well, some of the department heads said, I'm okay with that as long as I don't lose Chaffee's. And so, as it turns out, we went through the solicitation process, we followed purchasing procedures, but they were the lowest proposal, and so we're pleased to recommend them tonight. They do a great job. They've made City Hall look tremendous. It has needed some help. They already were doing the electric department and some of the others that maybe, I forget who all they had, water, and quite a few. So what we're doing is I think scaling these out to when other contracts expire, they take on that responsibility as well. So this is a big deal. We talked about, Mr. Hubbard, I believe you brought up efficiency earlier and how we spend money. This is one way to do that.
Okay. Then the gentleman that was here, he retired?
He did. He retired.
What was his name?
Jack Bridges.
Okay. Other discussion? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.10, discuss and possible take action on change order number 1 of the Moss Welding contract for a reduction of $338,087.40. The new contract amount will be $1,103,772.60. Motion made by Alderman Green and second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. This is a reduction. We better vote quick.
Nice one.
Yes. No discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. We're ready for our consent doc 4.1.
Move.
We'll take it as one, Mr.
Accept.
Carter.
I make a motion, we take it as one.
Take this one.
I was waiting for Mr. Harris.
I thought I'd let him do it this
Pass the
time.
book.
Ms. Green.
This is
Miss
just one.
Green beat both of you while y'all were arguing over it. Second by Alderman
It's her
Hubbard.
birthday, let her be.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Miss Emily Green.
I know, it's such an honor.
Thank you for,
Just where she wanted to spend the night.
with us from 4:30 till now. Thank you for serving tonight, especially on your birthday.
Of course.
Any questions about the consent doc as one? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. I think we've been here so long that we've just become giddy. I'm gonna turn this over to our city manager Ron Martin, for his report.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of brief notes. I know we're all ready to go home. Our annual cleanup day was a huge success. Over 180 volunteers came out and picked up over 5,000 pounds of litter. That's a pretty big deal and went a long way towards cleaning up the city, at least until Monday. The sewer rehab, I'm just kidding. Mr. Moore did a great job on that.
Thank you.
Our sewer rehab work, you'll see that on Fifth Avenue. That is the final project for our Phase 2C that is wrapping up under the EPA's administrative order on consent. So that work is wrapping up, and we really, really are excited about getting out from under that EPA mandate very quickly. Free Movie Fridays start this Friday night with Trolls World Tour at the fairgrounds. That's Friday night. The Splash Pad will open Memorial Day weekend. We're excited about that as well. And First Friday Night Market, it got rained out in May, but June 3rd, it's going to be great. I'm sure the weather's going to be great. And 4 on the Floor will be our musical entertainment that night for the summer concert series.
What kind of music is that?
What kind of music is that? Rock and roll. That's what I was gonna say. Thank you.
I'll have variety.
Current rock and roll or old rock and roll?
Oh,
The checker players.
the longer we stay, the
I'll say
funnier
Mr.
we
Martin's
get.
got an extra table in his office.
Okay.
You've lost us.
You lost us.
Freedom Fest is Sunday, July 3rd, and the Oak Ridge Boys are the headlining concert, so that's getting closer. Join us for Freedom Fest, and then the State of the City event will be on Thursday, July 14th this year, so look out for information on
What
that.
time will that, has that time been set
The State of the City, it'll be a lunchtime event.
at the center?
Mm-hmm.
Have to have a ticket or?
Yes. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you. This meeting is, oh, wait,
whoa.
Mr. Hubbard reminded me to ask for prayers for the communities where we've had mass shootings. This is a terrible occurrence across the whole United States, and we pray for those communities. You think you don't know anybody in those communities? We go to conventions and leadership roles throughout the country where we do know these people. And we work along beside of them, so our prayers are with all of those folks. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. I forgot.
The mayor of Buffalo, I've been knowing him for a long time, so he asks us for our prayer. Buffalo, New York.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This meeting is adjourned.